And you do not have parental rights to your daughter, correct?
Correct.
She's permanently disabled?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you have information on how your son is doing?
I don't.
So do you remember the situation in which your son was so tragically harmed?
Unfortunately.
Okay. Do you know what was going on for you at the time?
At the time, like my ex-wife went to work before me, so I had that, a little bit of time, which was good. With me just, taking care of my sons with no incidents. But then when I started going back to work, I was working part-time and full-time job, and then I was going to school for nursing. So like I just felt like overwhelmed, at that time, and plus trying to be there financially, and supporting my wife, with taking care of my son. So, I just felt that I was just like, I felt overwhelmed. I felt stressed.
He felt stressed having to work and take care of his twin sons, like what a father might do. The poor guy. You know that he's serving a 7.5-year sentence for what he did to his toddler boy, his 4-month-old twin. But wait, that's not all. You see, he suspected of hurting in 2014 his little daughter, his daughter from a previous marriage, who is so severely damaged she has permanent physical disabilities as a result of his incident. But yet, the DA, even with the facts of that case, even though it was the same doctor that saved the life of his daughter, who then had to save the life of his 4-month-old son, they still didn't bring charges to the maximum against this monster, against this lizard. No, instead, they gave a plea deal. Now, this parole hearing, it's not so important about whether they grant or not, because they're only talking about a matter of months. But what's disgusting is how they handle this case, how they're just wasted on the Kool-Aid, how they talk about the programs, and the limited amount of restrictions that they apply to this monster. I'm also going to call out the horrific actions of the DA, even going into a plea deal on this case, the mistakes around it. It's hard to understand. It truly is. This case got my stomach tied up in knots. With that, let's jump in.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for William Clingensmith, inmate number 429253. He is serving a sentence of 7.5 years followed by suspended after, He is serving a sentence of 7.5 years followed by 7.5 years special parole for assault first. As of today, record reflect a parole eligibility date of June 6, 2025. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the following programs: Good Intentions, Bad Choices on 7/24/19, Voices on 6/29/2020, Anger Management on 12/21/20, and the Quinnipiac College Program on 12/11/2024, and the Second Chance Parole Program on 12/16/2024. Utilizing a statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Clingensmith, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole.
Okay. Good morning again. I would first like to thank the Board of Pardons and Paroles for giving me this opportunity for a chance at parole, as well as a second chance at starting my life again as a changed man. In regards to my case and what happened, to this day, I am so very remorseful. I have so much regret to what I did. I am also sorry for the pain and suffering that I caused to my sons, their mother, and her family, and to my family. I only wish to take it all back. During my time in prison, I took the opportunity to work on myself spiritually, physically, and mentally. The programs such as Voices, Anger Management, Good Intentions, Bad Choices, and Effective Fatherhood have helped me to understand what victims go through and the impact from a crime caused on them have, how to manage anger in certain situations and learn relaxation techniques, how bad choices and actions have repercussions, and how to be a better parent. Ways that I stayed out of any kind of trouble in prison are by surrounding myself with positive people, helping others by lending my ear, sticking close with other Christians, and keeping to myself most of the time by doing schoolwork and reading. Post-release, I plan on being an asset to my community by being a law-abiding citizen, helping those who are in need, and to be a positive person. I plan on continuing my education to earn a degree, attending any programs that are required of me, getting a job, being a member of a church, seeking counseling, attending any meditation classes, and more importantly, abiding by the rules and regulations of my parole officer and halfway house. I feel in order to accomplish any of my plans, I will need the support from my family and friends. To do that, I'm hoping to transfer to Pennsylvania, where the majority of my family lives, and already have a place to live at my mother's house, who is my sponsor. I will also be a support for my mom, who is still grieving the loss of my father, who passed away on November 23rd of 23. My time in Connecticut will be spent trying to reunite with my children and to prove to them, regardless of the past, that I can be a good parent to them if allowed through the courts. I felt that in my heart that I was as honest as I could be when I interviewed with the Enfield police, and I want to be as truthful and honest with you. I've lied to so many people in the past, and I've learned that lying does not get anyone anywhere. After my release, I will not take any of the time I spent in prison for granted. I feel that I have grown to be a better person with everything I have experienced in prison. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Killian-Smith. We appreciate you putting together your opening statement for us today. We'll be asking you some questions, and then we will give you our decision about parole. It's a very short window between your parole eligibility date and your end of sentence. And I did see a correspondence about you had given some thought to waiving today's hearing. So you've chosen to go forward?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And we will begin with questioning with my panel member, Ellen Zablosas.
Morning. You answered a lot of my questions in your opening statement about where you're going from here. So I want to just ask a couple of things in reference to one of the letters that we received in terms of the support that you're receiving. And this letter specifically was from your mother. In it, she referenced that you had not usually been quick to ask for help. And I think, coming out now and rebuilding your life, as you stated, that's going to be important. So can you spend a little time talking about some of the programs that you've taken that might have put you in the direction of understanding what that support looks like and how to ask for it?
I mean, the big one for me was anger management, because I have had some anger issues in the past, and it obviously lingered over into prison. But it just showed me how to contain the anger, just to really listen before I react. So I mean that program was really needed for me, and really helped me out. For voices, like I said in my statement, it did help me to understand more of how what victims go through with how they were affected by the crime, especially with my sons. And it's just heartbreaking. You know, I took another which I mentioned was effective fatherhood. You know, that taught me, you know, different ways of like parenting, and you know how to, you know, as what the program says, to become an effective parent. And you know, I've learned a lot from that.
Has there been any contact via letters or anything while you've been incarcerated with your children?
Not with my children, but with their mother. And
I did see the
was,
letter.
yeah, right.
So we've also received letters from friends and family stating that you are going to have community support if you're able to go to Pennsylvania. What do you envision other than helping your mother? Have you looked at certain programs there? Have you looked at education? Do you have concrete ideas about what that looks like?
Honestly, I haven't looked at what like as far as jobs and like what school I'll be able to go to. You know, I've had to, you know, work out with like transportation and whatnot, but you know, between like, you know, now and whenever I'm released, you know, I will start looking into it. But I mean, I do plan on, you know, going to school and definitely getting my job. That's my, you know, first priority. Well, you know, when I get home.
Do you still have your pharmacy technician license?
No, it was suspended.
So could you just spend a minute or so telling me what your understanding is of the special parole that you have, the 7.5 years to follow, and what that means to you?
I'm not sure if I get the question. I'm sorry.
So
Like-
whether you're in Connecticut or in Pennsylvania, you have 7.5 years of special parole.
Right.
So what does that mean to you?
Just means, you know, I'll just have extra supervision, like, you know, I'll just have to, you know, mind my P's and Q's and, you know, just stay out of trouble and, you know, just to be on a good path, you know, while I'm under such parole.
Well, that's part of it, but the other part is that they're there to support you during your period of special parole as well, to make sure that you're successful. So in terms of my first question, being able to ask for help and understanding when you need help, they're part of your frontline defense for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'll definitely, you know, suck in my pride and, you know, definitely ask for the help that I need. Like, you know, I definitely want to seek help, you know, seek counseling, you know, go to, like, as I said in my statement, you know, meditation, you know, things that will help me as long as, you know, as well as, you know, asking help from, you know, my friends and family for that support. Absolutely. You're welcome.
Thank you. So, Mr. Klingensmith, we've reviewed all the documents for your file, and as I review the police report, the pre-sentence investigation, you know, a couple of things jump out at me. One is that you seem to be frustrated for a period of time, right? It seemed like there wasn't just this one particular incident. There was a couple others that you admitted to along the way to before you were actually arrested. And then you had some troubles with your daughter. Wow. So can you think about that time frame and figure out why it was so difficult for you to recognize what was happening again and not reach out for help? Because it seems to me also that there was some good support around you and the children's mother.
I regret not getting the help that I needed. I really do. I really do. And, you know, that's just one thing I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't get the support. Like, you know, I was just, maybe it was my pride, you know, or whatever, but I just wanted to, try and do it myself. Maybe, or, maybe just the stubbornness that I have, but, I mean, I can't really answer why I didn't seek the help that I needed, but, I do realize now that I should have, should have sought out the support, and help that, I needed at that time, it's just something I really regret not doing.
So you mentioned you've taken a lot of programs that I would say are very important, will be instrumental in your reacclimation to the community and associating in the community. So specifically with anger management, having taken it and given some thought about your lifestyle back then and how you conducted yourself, what would you say you've learned or skills that you've acquired to see when you start to have those feelings, whether they're frustration, overwhelming emotions of not being able to control your feelings, your anger, your physical outreach, your physical reactions. Thank you. What can you tell me about anger management that you hope to carry with you into the community?
I hope to, what like in certain situations that I've been through, like arguments and whatnot I've been through, in prison, like I kind of took a step back before reacting and given thought, and then, just really just talking it out with that person. That's one thing that I've learned from anger management is to just just really relax, not just think before you speak and before you act. That's the biggest thing that I took away from anger management. And that's one thing that I have been practicing, without me, blowing up and whatnot.
How do you practice that?
I'm sorry.
I said, how do you practice those skills? You said you practice them. Are there things that happen that you feel like you're utilizing the skills, or do you do some visualization to help you walk through the steps?
Yeah. There's steps that I take. Like I said, after before I get heated up, I'll just take a moment to, relax, take some deep breaths, think about what I'm going to say, and, just try and, just kind of, I'm sorry, just talk it over with that person, in a more peaceable manner, if that makes sense.
I mean, I'm sure there's opportunities to practice the skills in the facility. I'm sure there is events that occur that you need to not respond to, not react to. But we'll see what happens when you get to the community, right? It'll be a little bit different.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions. Thank you. Ms. Turner?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'll pick up on where you left off with my colleague about anger. You started by saying that it's been big for you in the past. And I'm wondering if either any of the programs have helped you tap into what's behind your anger.
Like you're saying, like how the programs have helped me with
I'm looking for any kind of insight you have into why anger has been, as you said, big for you in the past.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because usually anger is a more comfortable feeling than whatever else is underneath it. And so people will react in anger and not deal with what the discomfort is behind the anger.
Okay. Man,
Okay, well, you know, if you don't know, you don't know, but I would encourage you. It's something you need to explore because, you know, if you unpack it, then it doesn't have the power and it doesn't come roaring back every time you start to feel anger, all the unresolved stuff, right?
right. Yeah.
So, Mr. Klingensmith, you've done quite well during this period of incarceration. You're first, no disciplinary issues. You've done a couple of different vocational programs, as well as the programs on your OAP, and you've held a variety of jobs there in the facility. So, you know, I want to mention that because you should be recognized for the efforts, and you have no prior criminal history, though there was a similar incident, as my colleague mentioned, with your daughter. So, you know, we're looking at the letter from your ex-wife. It sounds like you were planning or already have terminated your parental rights to your sons. Is that, where do things stand with that?
No, I haven't terminated my parental rights. I mean, there were, I did go to a hearing to terminate my parental rights, but then at that hearing, I changed my mind, you know, to not go through with it.
Okay. And have your sons been adopted by your wife's new husband?
I'm not aware of her marital status, right?
Okay, because you had indicated in the interview with the parole officer that you thought your sons might have a different last name now.
Well, yeah, that was my ex-wife's parents' name. Yeah, dates. Yeah.
And is that the case?
That's the case.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry.
How do you feel about that?
I feel fine about it. You know, I don't have any anger. You know, yeah, I feel good about it. I'm okay with it.
I was pleased to hear you say that you would go through the courts if you want to reestablish a relationship with your sons. They live here in Connecticut?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you do not have parental rights to your daughter, correct?
Correct.
She's permanently disabled?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you have information on how your son is doing?
I don't.
So do you remember the situation in which your son was so tragically harmed?
Unfortunately.
Okay. Do you know what was going on for you at the time?
You know, at the time, like my ex-wife went to work before me, so I had that, you know, a little bit of time, which was good. You know, with me just, you know, taking care of my sons with no incidents. But then when I started going back to work, I was working part-time and full-time job, and then I was going to school for nursing. So, you know, like I just felt like overwhelmed, you know, at that time, and plus trying to you know, be there financially, you know, and supporting my wife, you know, with taking care of my son. So, you know, I just felt that I was just like, I felt overwhelmed, you know, I felt stressed, you know, then taking and all of that.
you did take a stress management class, correct? There,
Correct.
from Robinson, you just finished it last month.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
So hopefully you have some more tools in your toolbox for, stress is a part of being an adult. We live with it, and cope as best we can every day. And hopefully not with these kind of outcomes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to go back to the anger management. You took that program during COVID, so you just did that through paperwork in your cell?
No, actually, I think it was before COVID.
No,
We
it was
actually,
2020, and it was in your cell.
oh, what?
So I'm thinking that
Oh, yes,
perhaps,
I'm sorry. It was a different, okay, you're right.
thinking perhaps, that might be something, you have 7.5 years of special parole, that might be something helpful for you to do in the community. You talked about being a law-abiding citizen. You said have a job, go to church, counseling. What else does a law-abiding citizen look like to you?
Just really, staying out of trouble, not having any police contact. And just being, just a good citizen, for the community.
Well, I encourage you to think more expansively about that.
Okay.
Because, given the nature of your crime, it would be really positive for you to give back, find ways to volunteer, contribute your time to society. Being a registered voter, paying your taxes.
Right.
Mhm. So, do you have any life goals? I know you've been studying business education.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that, I can get back into, taking my prereqs for nursing, if I'm able to, but, I want,
I can
yeah,
look
definitely.
into whether your criminal history will interfere with a nursing degree.
I haven't yet. I do have some resources that I can, look into to see if, I'll be able to. If not, I would like to get back into pharmacy, definitely, since I have that experience. But, I do want,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh,
You do want one.
and, I definitely, I want to get my associate's degree and, and then continue on with there.
Do you have access to a tablet there in the facility?
Yes, we do.
Because you're not eligible for release until June. So you've got a lot of months ahead of you that you could be doing things to prepare yourself. And I would encourage you to research, licensing for, RN, for pharmacy technician, because there may be a need for you to have a plan B. Because this, felony conviction might be a stumbling block for you in some of the pursuits that you aspire to. So you're not currently in a relationship?
I am not.
So have you given any thought to what you're going to tell your next partner about your crime?
Yeah, I have. I'm just gonna be honest and forthcoming. If instead of just like her bringing it up or whatever, I'm just gonna be forthcoming and honest and
Did Jennifer
let that
know about
person
your
know.
daughter?
She did.
Do you think you'll have additional children?
No.
I'm glad that you at least took the circle of security, because if you do want to be in your children's lives, you know, parenting skills, they're not innate. We have to develop them. So, all right, well, my sympathies on the death of your father while you've been incarcerated, and I wish you much success going forward. Thanks for talking with me. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Klingensmith, we do not have victim input this morning, so we will go right into deliberation, and then we'll give you our decision feedback.
Okay. All right.
That was Sasson.
Yes, so I believe that with no prior criminal history and a low risk to recidivate, I'm looking at Mr. Klingensmith this morning as someone who has used his period of incarceration effectively. He's pursued education, vocational opportunities. He has not incurred any disciplinary reports. I believe he's taken relevant programming, including anger management, which we've talked a lot about this morning, voices, the good intentions. He's held jobs successfully. He's taken other relevant programs like the stress management and the effective fatherhood program he referenced. His request is to transfer to his mother's house in Pennsylvania. And while some of the details are still a little vague, he plans on continuing his education, obtaining a job, and he has committed to additional growth and counseling that he says he knows he needs. There does appear to be a fair share of community support and family support in Pennsylvania. And based on those factors, his low risk, I would recommend a grant today.
Thank you for that. So I agree with everything that's already been stated in terms of granting early release, and which will be followed by special parole, 7.5 years. As already stated, Mr. Klingensmith has done a number of programs which we would want him to do to address his risky needs. Does score low, has no prior criminal history, so he has no convictions, and does have quite a bit of support in the community, as evidenced by letters that have been provided, and his mother's agreement to be his sponsor should he be allowed to relocate to Pennsylvania. So I would also be in favor of granting his parole today. Ms. Turner?
I have Mr. Klingensmith granted.
And conditions? Is that?
The only one that I have as a absolute is the interstate to Pennsylvania.
Okay. I also had halfway house because it takes a little bit of time for them to investigate a mental health evaluation and treatment. At state plan, as you stated, Pennsylvania, and I had communities treatment for anger management. No contact with the victims in this case. GC and LC. Anything else, Ms. Turner?
And I have no contact with minors without the IM's permission.
I don't think we can impose that condition. It's not really.
It's directly related.
I mean, that's a. You know, I would rather leave it to the field to make a decision about whether or not they can. It's part of. It's an offense, and he's going to at some point contact. He'll approach the court about prior contact with his children. I don't know if that's a reasonable statement in terms of this. I mean, we'll can impose it, I suppose, if you think it's appropriate. Not 100% on board with it. Is that?
It's without the IM's permission, so it's not an absolute.
Typically apply it to cases such as this. In the matter of,
It's tantamount to child abuse.
I'm not disputing what the underlying factors are at all, and although there's no convictions, there is prior history. So I'm not disputing that at all. In the matter of William Klingensmith, inmate number 429, 253. This motion to grant parole on or after June 6, 2025, with the following stipulations. Halfway house placement as needed, mental health evaluation and treatment as deemed appropriate, out-of-state plan to Pennsylvania, community-based treatment for anger management, and community-based and no contact with minors without appeals permission, no contact with the victims GC and LC. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
All right, Mr. Klein-Smith, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
This concludes
you.
the hearing for William Clinton Smith, inmate number 429-253. You're all set, sir.
All right, thank you.
Case, did you see that? Yeah. Parole.
All right, so he was going to get out no matter what. They only paroled him 2 months early, but what is disturbing, what is just disgusting is listening to them actually talk about how whether or not they should allow him to be around children. Just wait until I go into the facts of this case. The way that they were talking about it so nonchalantly is I just don't. Look, we have seen thousands of cases. We have seen the worst kinds of cases, but as I read this, my stomach turned to knots. He is a serial offender, and we know this by watching other parole hearings, other states like Louisiana. You don't need to be convicted of the crime for the parole board member to bring it up as facts, to ask questions, and even to impose rules on his special parole. And the idea that she's actually saying things like, well, he's going to have to get back with his children. Do you know that he permanently disabled his daughter? Or at least that's what this article says. That's what he's accused of doing. Let me read it all to you so we can take it from the source. Remember, I did say daughter, not twin sons. Yes, he's in trouble for what he did to his sons, but there was prior suspicion of what he did to his daughter. This wasn't only the parole board that messed up. The judge, the DA, I guess the DA really, that they let this coward out, that they did not throw the book at him is barbaric. Let's go through this. And thank you, Richard, and thank you, Holly. Can you imagine this was only written January 24, 2019? A Springfield man was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison Wednesday. This is a real trauma warning. For shaking and squeezing and seriously injuring his 4-month-old son a little over a year ago. William used to live in Enfield but moved back to Massachusetts after his crime. The mother of the injured child has since divorced him. Thank God. He pleaded no contest in November to first-degree assault as part of a plea agreement. He initially faced 2 counts of first-degree assault and 2 counts of risk of injury to a minor. These mother DAs gave him a plea deal. Why? Because they're cowards. Because they do not care about our children. Because they are pathetic. Anyone with a heartbeat would have done everything they possibly could have done to lock this monster up for as long as the law allowed. You don't need to put the 4-month-old on the stand, so that's not an excuse. You had a confession. You had doctor reports. You have history of doing this, and you gave him a plea deal. It makes me sick. It makes me sick. A judge also let him out without bond, by the way, which the next judge could not believe. His defense lawyer told Hartford Superior Court judge that he is extremely remorseful about his crime and he does have a conscience as to what happened. And as we saw, there is no conscience in this man. There is no empathy in this man. There is nothing. It is a black hole where his soul might otherwise be. Klingsmith did not address his crime when it came his time to speak. Of course he didn't. The judge then sentenced him to just 7.5 years, followed by 7.5 years of special parole. Prosecutor Richard Rubino described his crime in November plea hearing. This is the prosecutor, the two-faced prosecutors that offer the plea deals. These two-faced nut jobs, in my opinion, evil as well. Can you imagine having the facts of this case and offering a plea deal, not having the rage within you to lock the man up to protect future victims? Can you even imagine? Why do you have this job? Why are you here in this role if you don't stick it to someone who deserves it? The boy, let's go through this. The prosecutor speaks about the November plea hearing. The boy suffered a brain bleed and 2 broken ribs, and Klingsmith gave varying accounts of what happened, Rubino said, the DA. In one instance, he admitted to shaking the boy, squeezing the boy until he heard a popping sound, and then throwing him onto a crib mattress. On another occasion, he tossed the boy onto a car seat. Those are his stories. The injuries were discovered after the infant was taken to the Bay State Medical Center in Springfield in January 2018 by his parents. According to the warrant, Klingsmith's arrest, hospital staff determined that the baby was suffering from bleeding on the brain and immediately contacted the Connecticut Department of Children and Family Services, who then contacted Enfield Police. Hospital staff also discovered 2 broken ribs that had begun to heal. But believe me, it gets worse. The child's injuries were so serious that he was transferred to the hospital for special care in New Britain. And it gets worse. The child may have suffered the head injury when a frustrated Klingsmith threw him into the car seat while parked at East Windsor Business. According to the warrant, the broken ribs occurred when Klingsmith squeezed the boy, the warrant said. Klingsmith told Enfield detectives that he hugged the boy against his body and that the boy cried and turned red. There was a couple of snaps, and I was like, whoa, wait, what did I just do? The warrant quotes him saying. Williams said he remembered the sound and said he felt horrible when it happened, according to the warrant. He then began to cry and said, I feel like a bad parent. He's like a man child. I feel like a bad parent. Just wait till I get to the part what is alleged he did to his daughter, and blamed his contact on his emotional frustrations. On January 2018, the incident was not the first time that Klingsmith has been suspected of abusing a child. The doctor who treated Klingsmith's son, the same doctor at Bay State, had also treated his daughter from a previous marriage. That child was taken to the hospital in 2014 with a brain bleeding caused by suspected abuse. In addition to the bleed, the girl had bruising on her neck and multiple bone fractures, all indicative of abuse, according to the warrant. His ex-wife told police that no charges were ever filed against him in his daughter's case. The girl is now 4 and suffers significant physical disabilities as a result of the incident. According to the warrant, Klingsmith is permitted only supervised visits with the girl for 1 hour a week. So there you have it. Now, we can go and say, how in the bloody hell did he not get charged for what happened to his daughter? How did CPS let this through? How is it? And you know what? It comes down to it just being children, to him being a manipulative mother. But you can see he can't even fake the empathy. I think my daughter's okay. I don't know. I think my kids are okay. I don't know. And then he talks about his reasoning for being stressed. He says, I was in nursing school. I was supporting my wife and taking care of my sons. And it's like, what? You mean like what a father does? You mean you were being a father? So that stressed you out so much that you gave your son broken ribs and a brain bleed? He looks, he reminds me of like the classic like lizard person. I hope you guys can hear the noise in the background. It's really upsetting me. But he gets released 2 months early. I don't know why. You know, someone like this, they go through the motions, the parole board, like they're just robots. Like they're robots so wasted on the Kool-Aid of programs and risk scores that they have the information that we had. They asked about his daughter. They saw the hearing that we saw. Why did they not? How could you even have the argument about just refusing to allow him to be with children? They had an argument that no, leave it up to the to his probation officer. We don't want to complicate things because he's going to want to get back with his children. Who can see the facts of this case and actually say that? It's unreal. And some of you might be wondering, where's the victims? Where are the victims? How come they didn't speak up in this case? And we have seen time and time again where victims do not get notified about the parole hearing. So that is a very big possibility. We have seen it where the second hearing, the victim would come up and say, I was never notified. And we see it because, see, we do research on the dockets, and oftentimes the dockets aren't published until a very short period of time before the parole hearing. So it's our belief that there is a lot of disorganization within the back end management of the process. But we don't even need to make guesses. We have seen victims come up and complain about not being notified. We've seen it from every state. It just pissed me off. It really did. Like, these are the people that are meant to protect us. It's such a low hanging fruit to say that you can't have access to children, period. It's there's no reason he should be near a child, and he's young. He can father more children. He probably will father more children. Why wouldn't he? He'll just put on a smile. Look, he can he's trying to get a nursing degree. Who knows what will happen with that? He's trying to get a nursing degree. He will be the pharmacist, a dad. He'll paint whatever story he wants to tell, whatever woman he wants to date, and he'll have a child, and he's a danger. And now the last line of defense is a probation officer, a PO. The DA. Why the DA would give a deal, I just can't understand. They needed to lock him up and throw away the key. This needed to be a 25-year sentence, whatever the maximum was allowed. We have seen DAs. DAs will go after people if they get accused of a crime but not convicted. We see them get, find ways to make up for it if they ever get a second chance in court, like they did here today. But you see none of that, I guess, passion for what they do. They should have been like, man, we for whatever reason couldn't get, but they don't care. Why were charges not brought to begin with in the last time? They just don't care. Babies don't just, like what happened with their daughter, become permanently mentally disabled by accident. And they never even brought charges. You can't make it up. Anyways, that's enough of my soapbox. With that, I'll let you go.
And you do not have parental rights to your daughter, correct?
Correct.
She's permanently disabled?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you have information on how your son is doing?
I don't.
So do you remember the situation in which your son was so tragically harmed?
Unfortunately.
Okay. Do you know what was going on for you at the time?
At the time, like my ex-wife went to work before me, so I had that, a little bit of time, which was good. With me just, taking care of my sons with no incidents. But then when I started going back to work, I was working part-time and full-time job. And then I was going to school for nursing. So, like I just felt like overwhelmed.